I imagine you've picked a team, Spain or Argentina. If not, it's time. Maybe you don't care about soccer at all, and you've been dragged into this anyway, because for weeks now it's been impossible to avoid. The bars around town with flags in the window, the office pool, somebody's kid glued to a phone at the dinner table, whisper narrating a match happening thousands of miles away. And if you've watched any of it, even a little, you know that the shape of it by now. All of a sudden, everyone knows what offsides means, fan or not. It's been something special. Back in the opening week, Cape Verde, an island nation you could drive across in an afternoon, playing in their first ever World Cup, walked into a stadium in Atlanta against Spain, the European champions, and simply refused to lose. Spain fired off 27 shots to Cape Verde's 6 and still couldn't find a way to pass a 40-year-old goalkeeper standing on his head all night long. Nobody predicted that. And just this week, in the semifinal, Argentina looked finished, down a goal to England with the clock bleeding away, the whole tournament seemingly slipping out of their hands. And then, in the 85th minute, they equalized on a rocket from outside the box, and in stoppage time delivered the winning header off a cross from their aging captain, sending the crowd into delirium. One match, from resignation to euphoria, in about 4 minutes of stoppage time. But this tournament hasn't only lived in the results. You didn't need a ticket to feel it. Every time the Netherlands has played, their fans have brought out a decades-old double-decker bus painted head to toe in orange and marched behind it through whichever city hosted the match. Sometimes for a mile or more, drawing in locals who never even followed a game of soccer in their lives. In Kansas City, thousands walked together in pouring rain rather than break off the parade. And here in Houston, just down the street, fans dressed as Lady Liberty painted orange right alongside grandmothers and toddlers and people who just wandered out of their homes and businesses to see what the noise was all about. And you didn't even need to leave your own neighborhood to feel the pull of it. Rice University put soccer balls on its welcome sign. The Hotel Zaza shuttle had a net and balls on the roof. The grocery store circular has a section just for game day snacks. Restaurants turned their patios into watch parties. Strangers hugged strangers over a goal that had nothing to do with either of their home countries. Nobody there could have even told you the score of the match, but it didn't matter. The joy had already started. You can't predict any of it, and that's the whole appeal, and also the agony. This week, we open the book of Devarim, of Deuteronomy, the 5th and final book of the Torah. And it opens with a phrase that sounds almost like stage direction. Ele hadvarim. These are the words. These are the words Moses spoke to the Israelites on the far side of the Jordan, at the very edge of the land they'd been walking towards for 40 years. But Ele Devarim isn't just an introduction. It's a beat before a long exhale. Moses is standing at the edge of something, and what he's about to do is look back. Not with a polished highlight reel, but the whole record, the whole tournament of their wandering. And it was not steady either. There was the high of standing at Sinai and hearing the world remade in fire and thunder. There was the low of the spies coming back with a report so frightening that an entire generation was told, not you, not this land, not in your lifetime. There were manna and quail delivered like clockwork, and there was open rebellion in the camp. Korach, the earth splitting open beneath him. A story so violent the text barely lets you catch your breath before moving on. There was Miriam's death and Aaron's death, and the grief that this text does not smooth over or explain why. There was again and again a people who did not know, who could not know what tomorrow in the wilderness would bring. And still, and this is the part that I keep coming back to, there was rhythm underneath the chaos. The cloud that lifted when it was time to move and settled when it was time to rest. Shabbat, arriving every seventh day, whether the week had been a triumph or a total disaster. Some things in the wilderness were wildly, painfully unpredictable, and some things you could set your watch to. I think that's actually the truer parallel to this World Cup, more than the highs and the lows themselves. It's not just that a tournament has stunning upsets and heartbreaking losses. It's that inside all that chaos, there's still a clock. 90 minutes, halftime, rules everyone agreed to before the ball was ever kicked, and there's a bus, painted the same orange every single time, gathering strangers into community. The unpredictability is real, but it happens inside a container sturdy enough to hold it. That's what Devarim is handing us. I think as we open a new book and head towards a new year, not so far from now, it's not a promise that the road smooths out. Moses himself doesn't get to cross the river. That's about as unresolved as an ending can picture. But Scripture gives us 40 years of walking, and the reward is a view from the mountaintop, not a homecoming. But he does get to stand at the edge and he says, here is everything that happened. The whole record, not just the victories. I suspect this lands differently depending on where you're sitting tonight. If you're newer to the congregation or visiting or newer to a certain stage of life, Devarim might feel like a strange place to start, a book that opens with someone else's retrospective. Stay with it. It'll get to you. Every ending is also someone's beginning. If you're in the thick of raising a family right now, you know this rhythm intimately, even if you've never called it that. The unpredictable fever at 2 a.m. and then somehow the Tuesday carpool still runs on schedule. And if you're further along, kids grown, the house quieter than it used to be, you may be doing your own version of what Moses does here. Looking back on that long stretch of road, cataloging the whole of it, the parts that went well and the parts you would have changed if you could, and wondering what lies ahead as the landscape takes its next turn. So here's what I'd ask of us this week and maybe every week from here through the fall. When the unexpected knocks at you sideways, the health challenge you didn't see coming, the phone call that changes the shape of your day, the small, stunning grace that arrives when you least expected it and even stopped hoping for it. Allow yourself to feel the whole force of it. Don't rush to smooth it into something manageable, neat, or clean. And in the same breath, hold on to whatever clock you've got. Shabbat, arriving on schedule regardless of the week that you've had, a phone call to someone who loves you made at the same time every week because that's just what you do. The people sitting in these seats next to you tonight showing up in the same room like the cloud that says, it's time to rest now. We are, all of us, somewhere in our own Devarim, standing at some edge, looking back at a stretch of road that had more turns in it than we expected, some hard, some glorious. May we tell the whole record honestly. May we trust the rhythms that have carried us this far. And whatever Sunday brings, on the field or off it, may we find again and again that we know just how to roll with it. Shabbat Shalom.